Hello everybody, welcome back to a new series from Whalejaw 3D. In this series, we're going to be animating this car. If you followed with the last series, we basically built this car. If you'd like to know how to build a car, go and click on that page or there'll be a link below and you could build a car just like this. So, how would you animate a car in Blender? Well, it's quite complex, but at the same time, broken down into little chunks, it's quite simple. So for my first episode back in the new series, I feel like I should just discuss the basic things about animation in Blender. Shall we make a start? So we made a car, didn't we? I've got it in a lovely view at the minute. If you'd like it in full screen view, it's as simple as control and space. What we probably need to discuss is the basics, don't we? You might already know these things, but at the same time, I'm going to be referencing these items a lot in the coming episodes, so it'd be worth just giving them a quick overview. Yeah? So I've prepared a little exercise for us. If we press that one there, the square, we can exclude from the view layer. There's your bird. You're welcome. So, if we turn on our examples, we can't see much, can we? Because I need to show our overlays like this. Now, what have we got here? I had a bit of a play around to see how I want to discuss it. If we look here, we've got, in this folder, we've got 3 empties, an armature, which is, I call a bone, yeah, this one here, and we've got 2 wheels, haven't we? So, if we quickly turn the wheels off, what we have here are 3 different empties. They're all the same, they're just different shapes. What is an empty? An empty is basically say, this is an object with geometry. It's the same thing, but it doesn't have geometry. It's just a targeting system, and we can use it to help us achieve certain tasks, shall we say. Yeah? So these are empties. They're see-through, you never see them when you render them, they're just there, they're handy. We also have something called a bone. It's very similar, and obviously if you press Shift A, we came over to like empties, you can find all those empties there, you can even pull an image in, which is basically how we've been doing reference images, or you can have an armature, like a single bone like that is there, or a card deformation rig. We'll discuss that later on, but for now we've just got a single bone, haven't we? Yeah? So now we understand these. Right, we've got a bone and we've got an empty, haven't we? If we had more than one bone, we'd have something called an armature. An armature is basically a skeleton. Yeah? The reason we use bones is because we like to do something called weight painting. And what weight painting is, I don't know whether you know, it's basically say like an arm. If you want to bend an arm organically, you need to use bones because we need coordinates, a skeleton. It's a different process, but we're doing cars. We're mainly going to be using like empties and bones, but we're not going to be using weight painting. So in theory, if you want to learn animation, a car is probably the best thing you could learn. Like a semi-complicated system about animation. It can teach you a lot basically. I've learned a lot from it. So now we know these basic boring principles. What can we do with an object and a bone? You can basically utilize something called a parent-child relationship. Currently, in object mode, we can utilize the objects in this. So, if I click the empty box, and then click, using Shift, the bone would become yellow, meaning it is the parent of the parent-child relationship, yeah? If we now press Control and P, we have these options here. What we can do is we can just parent it to the object, yeah? So when we move it, it just matches it. We can also parent to the bone, which is a different principle. We don't want that yet. So if we just go parent that object to this bone, if we unselect everything and just select the bone, when we press move with G, that empty is going to follow into it. Yeah? This is a parent-child relationship. It uses Control P, that's your shortcut, to bring up all your different options. We only need the objects because we're using hard surface models at the minute, nothing like bends or flexes. So we are pretty much going to be using objects and bones in a very linear fashion. Yeah, it makes sense. Now, the difference with a bone is we can press enter, come into tab mode, press Shift D, and do the same principles on that. Yeah, select those two, press Control P, keep the offset, and it's drawn this line here. Look, I'm sure you can see it, that line there, and it basically works the same. Yeah, so when we move it, they'll move the same. So now we know this. It's pretty simple, isn't it? Yeah, follow the leader. That's all it is when we're building cars, utilizing objects and bones, or armatures, depending on what word you want to use. There's another layer to this which we should discuss, and I want to discuss it with you because it's quite important, and it's called add an object constraint. Say like this one here, we have selected this cone, haven't we? If we now add an object constraint, say track 2, and we selected this empty, which is basically a target, isn't it? Yeah, you notice how it's moved, and it's because if we moved, say, this bone that's parented to that square like this, can you see that cone moving like that? Look, yeah, is it worth me turning off this stuff here? Can you see how now that cone is following that cube? It's called an object constraint, yeah, and ours is called track 2. It's the same principle across the entire car rig. We're basically doing these things. Look, we can move this box, but because it's not parented the other way around to this, that stays still. So we can move the box, but then we can still move the bone, yeah? And then obviously we've got this constraint, so that'll match this. Does that not look familiar? So if I brought these two in here, and we say, move this box up here, we can do the same thing with an actual object, can't we? We can come here, I've already set it up. If I just turn it on, click that one, and we click that one, it's the same one as this cone here. If we then move this box, have we not just created a steering wheel? Yeah? That's what we're basically going to be doing when we're animating. This is all it is underneath the complicated looking skin, yeah? You've got bones that basically govern the animation, like it'll tell it where the center is and how to rotate it, yeah? And then you'll have something called an empty that we're also calling a constraint or an object constraint. These objects can basically be utilized in object mode, as in like the quick mode, and we can quickly adjust our rig. This is our rig, these bones, our armature rig, and we can basically quickly adjust them without having to click on the bone and going into pose mode, which will do the same. Yeah, it's a very complicated system, and I'm trying to stay out of pose mode for as long as I can until you understand the basics, yeah? So now, if I now finally explain, how long have we been going? 15 minutes. This is a perfect quick tutorial. I don't want it to be too complicated. I just want to like a sweet little intro video, and if you're interested, come watch the next episode kind of thing. So what we can do now is learn about keyframes. To make all this work, we need something called a keyframe. If we select our empty there, what we can do is press the I button. I button inserts a keyframe, and you'll notice everything's gone yellow, and you've got yourself a little dot here in this bottom panel that you can pull up. This is your timeline. We're going to be working mainly in our timeline. Now, with this keyframe, we've basically locked in, yeah, key, lock, we've locked in some coordinates. We're basically saying in that exact moment of space, be there. And what we can do is drag along the timeline and say like at 80 frames in, be exactly at that coordinates, please. So if we then moved the box like just to the right and we pressed I again, we've now got 2 keyframes, haven't we? And the computer will interpolate the like moving from there to here. This is animation. It's so simple. It really is. You can expand on this if you select both keyframes, and you can change the interpolation mode. You can have it linear, yeah, just a like consistent speed. You can have it a step frame, so it can just chunk to each frame, or you can have it as a Bezier. If you're familiar with vectoring, it's just curving it in. It's always smoothing it in. Yeah. So for me, I'm just going to click linear, so it's just a consistent speed, constant speed. This is animation when animating a car. It all breaks down to this simple fact. Yeah. Empties and bones and different parent-child relationships. Those are all the key words that you'll need if you get stuck and you need to like figure it out. They're your words, yeah? So knowing this knowledge, can we put together a simple animation? 5 key parts. We've got the Batmobile and we've got 4 wheels, haven't we? We'll keep it simple for now. What you could do for a simple product animation and practice is if we can come round these 4 wheels and we can probably just press I and keyframe them. We know that's like the exact location we want them to be, isn't it? So if we move that now to a designated point in time that we want, how long do we want our animation? We probably should learn this now, and it might be worth quickly overviewing it. In your timeline, you've got a start and you've got an end, and you've got your frames here. You can like budge forward individually on your frames, and you can start at frame 1, whichever one you want, and end at whatever frame you want. Now, There's also, in this panel here, your output, you've got your frame rate here. Frame rates, could be a long discussion, but I'm not gonna delve into it. But for animation, I like to use 30 or 60. It depends on what we're using it for. For the sakes of like computer speed and like I'm screen capturing, I'm going to use 30. If I was making a film, I'd go 24, but I'm not, so I'm going 30. I want those extra frames to give it smoothness. You could argue all you want below. You can always make 30 frames per second footage 24 frames, but you cannot make 24 frames footage into 30 frames without issues. It's just junky. So I like to use 30 when I do my animations. We now know if we say we want 2 seconds of animation, don't we? At the minute we've got it at 4. That's probably acceptable. So we can come in here now and change this to 120 frames. We've now got our 4-second animation segment, haven't we? Yeah, dead simple. So now we've covered that. And just lastly, if you want to change the resolution, obviously there's this quick tab here. I like to use HD TV 1080p or 4K Ultra HD TV, depends what you want. Yeah, simple stuff. Probably worth telling you is obviously switch it to MPEG video. If you're just uploading to YouTube, just switch it to MPEG video. If you're doing something schmexy, then probably go explore other things. But we're not. We're just doing normal stuff. And also, I like to change it to MPEG 4 because it's usually in Matroska, which is, I believe, like the old DVD format, which is just no computer like understands it or anything. So I just stick to MPEG 4 or QuickTime. They're basically the same thing. They're just a compressor. Yeah. So take your pick. You're probably QuickTime if you're on Apple, MPEG if you're on Windows. Just compress it. I like to have perceptually lossless because if I use lossless, it's too big. It's ridiculous. Don't do it. So quick render overview over. Yeah. What we've done, haven't we, is we've keyframed all our wheels. What we can do now is if we go back to the 0 frame, we can individually select each wheel, can't we? And we can come in and drag it out, say there, and press I. If we press play now, that wheel's gonna come in like, you know what I mean? We've got an animation. So if we do that for the other wheels as well, and we stagger it slightly so they don't come in at the same time. Move it here, press I, select the other one, move it out, press I. Obviously, I could do that across all these side things, couldn't I, as well? I'll quickly do that now, just to save time. So now I've done that across every single piece in the actual model. If we look, we can see everything's been blown apart, can't we? If we quickly scroll through it, you can see that at the end, everything comes together, can't we? Most animations do this. I'm just trying to show you a basic keyframe animation, only using objects and keyframes. We can see it's kind of it's a little bit linear, isn't it? We ought to kind of stagger each piece on the end. So what we can do is we can probably say, click each one and just grab the last frame and just stagger it around. So it's a bit more random, yeah? And if we just run through it, we can see it's kind of getting there, can't we? We could even drop the Batman down halfway through to guarantee that when it comes down, everything will like suck into it, yeah? And you can just go around adjusting these keyframes so they're just right. It's like we can see that's coming through far too high up the top, isn't it? So the first frame needs to be all the way down there. Press I so that it comes in at a better angle. Still doing it, so come in, knock it down some more. Press I, and you come in. You basically made a really simple animation, haven't you? So I'd like those wheels to be completely staggered as well. I'd like one wheel to be in quite early. Alright, so we've adjusted it. Bosh, 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 bosh. Yeah? We've basically created a simple animation, haven't we? So if we come into our camera view now, and we press play, we can basically look at our nice simple animation. Yeah? I still dare say, if I wanted, with this one, if we just delete that first keyframe, what we can do with this one is try again, can't we? We know it's on that plane then, so if we just pull it out here again, and press I, press play again, it should all come together. Absolutely lovely. We can even keyframe our camera if we wanted. So if we come in, select our camera, turn it on. What we need to do is we need to do the same thing again. Is press I and keyframe that first shot that we've got, haven't we? If we drag it to the other end and we click on our camera lock there, look, and we just like scope in. We could even come out, rotate it a little if we wanted, and press I. We should have now a bit of a steady motion, shouldn't we? You can see halfway in there, look, it kind of goes out of shot, doesn't it? So is it worth changing our interpolation to linear so it's a more consistent motion? No, it's not. So in the middle, we may have to put another keyframe to just help it out a little bit. we obviously want to rotate it, but we're on a 45-degree angle, so we've got to use our mouse, really. So if we come in, center it up, maybe even spin it the other way like that, just square it in like that and press I. This one, we can have a Bezier interpolation on that one, so it's nice and smooth, so that when we come down, it's going to kind of screw it in for us, yeah? Might even be worth ditching that last one. The camera work, it's up to you. Yeah, I'm just trying to create a quick explanation. I might rotate that a bit more. Which way are we going? Rotate into the right, and then it's going back to left. That's what's up weird. It feels weird because it's doing a swaying motion. Yeah, keep pressing I, reset it, and we've got ourselves a 3-tier keyframe animation, haven't we? It's dead simple. Now, how would I export this animation? Oh yeah, 30 minutes. This episode's perfect. Once you'd done your animation, you'd come up to your render settings, wouldn't you? Hopefully you already know this, so I'll do it quick. We want cycles. We're working in cycles. And that's your viewport. In my render, if I'm going to town, I'll go to 256 samples. I just want to show you an example. Most things on the internet are only 72 dpi, aren't they? And this is how I judge my samples. It's basically dpi. And online, you can't use more than 72. So if you're going to post to, say, Instagram, online, anything, there's just no point in rendering anything more. It's just if you're doing a hard copy that you're going to reference a lot and copy and paste a lot. Say like, you want to do it 4K. It has its uses, but for this, we're going to use 72 because it's just performance now that we need. I don't like to use the noise threshold. Just give me all the noise. I've learned that if you're using glass, it's best to not use a noise threshold because you want all the detail, yeah? So I'll just let it rip. I've got a 4090, I don't really care. So if we press F12 now, just to test it, what we can do is load in all our data and we can see how long it's going to take. The first time will take a long time. So at the minute, we've got 8.9 seconds. That's not bad, I don't think. We've got 120 frames. You know what I mean? It's a tea break and a snack. You'll be fine. So if we press F12 again, will it get faster? Immediately faster, look. Because it's got all the stuff loaded into its settings, it's done it in 2 seconds. It's not going to be fast for us at all. How can I explain that? If we scroll down some more, this performance window here, we have something called persistent data on. The first time it loaded and rendered, it had to load every single thing in. All these items, load them all in, all the materials, everything. And if it was to do it on an animation, every single frame, it would take an absolute age to do it, and it's unnecessary. So what this button does, it basically says, once you've loaded it in once, just keep referencing it, yeah? Instance it, or whatever the word is. So we need to make sure we've got this one selected there, yeah? Otherwise, it'll take forever. You can use tiling depending on, tiling's basically just to, calm it down, it's probably more to do with CPU rendering than anything for me. Yeah, that's pretty much all we need to discuss. If you want to come around here, I like to use AGX. We've got medium high on at the minute, so I've obviously come around and set it. Base is a bit pasty for me, so I've gone for a medium high. I like my AGX. So what we can do now we know we're happy with what it looks like, press F11, we know what we're getting, don't we? The resolution's okay, it's fine. It's an example. What we can basically do now is define where we want this animation to go, can't we? We know we're making an MPEG video. I've just not clicked on this one and told it where to go, basically. So for now, I'm just sending it to desktop. We'll just put it there, yeah? What we can do now is if we press Control and F12, or for your one-armed men, we come over to render here, look. You've got F12 to render just the image and Control F12 to render the animation. You can click these buttons, but I'm going to use Control F12. So if we press this, we can see our animation starting. We can also see I'm not the best at camera work. It's an example, isn't it? So if I just let that render. So, after a quick tea break, we've got an animation that looks like this. I know it looks a bit rubbish, but it's just a technical example. We've basically learned about objects, armature bones, and keyframes in this episode. It's basically going to be the backbone of this entire series. I feel like if I get this out of the way, in this junky little episode, you can come join me in episode 2, where I'm going to show you how to prepare this model and rig it for animation so that you can actually make it look like a real car. So if you're interested, if you go on my page, click the link below or whatever, there'll be a series called How to Animate a Car, and we're going to go from start to finish and we're going to animate this Batmobile. If you're excited and you want to press the like button, I would be more than grateful. Otherwise, I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'm aiming for a daily upload kind of deal, you know what I mean? So get ready. We're going to animate this Batmobile. If you're curious, we're going to be making it so the wheels move, the wheels steer, the guns pop up, the guns shoot, the roof opens, there's somebody inside, and I think some flames out the rear. I think that would basically cover every moving part on this car, wouldn't it? Maybe some lights. Yeah, so if you're interested, click that button. I'll see you in a bit, kiddos. Thank you for the support. It honestly supercharges me, it really does. I feel like some kind of YouTube daddy. Let's go. Click next one.